Well, YFP take a pretty decisive win on Blue Otter's strongest map. I think this probably killed a lot of the Cope fans that the Blue Otter fans may have had for this series. Because wow, what a showing from YFP.
It started off well too, and I think they got both pistols on top of that, but still seeing that same result towards the end definitely shows that YFP, just as Zeldris was just talking, or sorry, not Zeldris, Physic was just mentioning at that interview before we got back here from the break, was just talking about they wanted to focus more on those fundamentals and not having to overcook with different compositions from like a harbor and whatnot, and then pulling out the standard of this breach Tejo and then giving space for Penny to do what Penny could do. It looked so good here for YFP.
And I think YFP can come into this match with a lot of confidence that not only do they think they could win, they probably know they can win. And you could tell by the way that they were playing, Ash, like Jake is teleporting forward and Rebel taking fights and Yoru cloning, walking up from Penny. Like YFP just, it's like another day at the office.
Yeah, I think it's important for them to start with that confidence, start on that right foot going into this series. To be able to set themselves up for success. I like the look that we've seen from YFP, the fact that even going towards, Fracture as our next map, this idea that YFP are taking this chance on maps that we haven't really seen from them, trying to catch their opponents by surprise, and they had really great reads on what they expected to see out of Blue Otter as well on both sides. I think the retake protocols on defense look really great, and on attack, they really smothered Blue Otter and didn't really give them a chance to actually look to fight back into a lot of those rounds.
Exactly that. And I think a lot of it came down to what you were mentioning, Ash, at the beginning of this game before we got into Lotus, was the standard, hey, let's just use the Yoru clone to break the wall early here on the C site. And that just allowed for them to have free reign of how they wanted to default or around the rotations. Keg was mentioning that it's very difficult for you to rotate from A over to C, but if they're using a lot of that macro to insert players in those ways that they were faking around the sites, then it allowed for them to really get more comfortable, pull out the knife, rotates over because they've already gained that space. So think about that Yorin breach ult fake that they had towards that C site when you already had Thief inserted towards the A side, or the Rumble control and the push that they're currently doing, then Thief immediately engages into middle towards that B site, and they could convert through the baby door back into a B site plant. So there was a lot of good macro plays here that YFP were currently doing in the first place on their attack side. There was at least some attempts here from YFP to try to answer back, because you did see Zolstol play a lot of these judge rounds into these heavy lurk areas, for example, in front B or at the corner here of the entrance of the A site. But that wouldn't be enough here for the rest of what YFP could do with the remaining players that they had around the map and the space that they've gained around that map to be able to convert all these round wins.
And this is quite the duelist matchup, just kind of going back to our conversation between Zeldris and now I'm blank. We just talked about Penny. There we go. Zeldris and Penny, of course, worth $1 million. Looking at Penny's stats, though, of course, they're going to look fantastic. He's with a team that has been with him for so long, Ash, and Zeldris is just beginning his journey with Blue Water, and I feel like there's so much more there. But Penny really showed up just out the gates.
Yeah, he did. I do love that you touch on that, though, is the fact that, Zeldris is just slotting in, and then Penny has obviously had this time to gel with YFP for quite a while with that core, but he was playing lights out in this game. I think 6-2 as far as those first kills, first deaths. But you also have to give over that credit, obviously, to not only Stellar, but also Jake with some of those paranoias that we saw being thrown out. Just the space that was able to be created there by Penny. And then you even look towards Physic. I think the Tejo, those salvos, they're really good at clearing out the thorns that are laid down by that Vice, even after that wall gets triggered there by Penny's clone. So I think the synergy, the chemistry with this composition was just sublime.
Yeah, again, I think the composition, if you're pulling out this Teo in this breach and bringing out a Yoru, is probably the best way to want to approach how you want to gain the space off the initiator util. If you're thinking about the past meta, where it was like a breach and a neon, and the breach is going to stun into a site, and then you have a neon stun at the same time, but then you go wall up and take a site, then it allows here for your duelist to not only gain space towards a map, but also stay within the walls and delay long enough for your teammates to come through. You don't have that anymore now that Neon's been slightly nerfed and not used as much. So the ability now to have Yoru to move into these sites around that util, use your own Yoru clone so that you could actually instigate more footsteps, force a shot to blind players, use your own flash to gain the space. And if you're under a heavy attack, you could still TP away. But by that time, the rest of your team already moved forward. that's a great way to scale up for map control here on your attack side, and they've done that quite well. And I think it's a flash of what G2 is doing in the partnership program currently, and it's nice to see that YFP are able to adopt that quite well as well.
Yeah, and to look forward, at least that's what Blue Water are going to try and do. Forget about what happened map 1 and to really turn up for what's coming up next. It's Fracture, and it is the choice of YFP. And if you look back at how Blue Water performed on Fracture, Ash, it didn't go so well against Winthrop, 13-4. How do you possibly turn this around? Do you conform around Zeldris? Does Zeldris conform to your strat? Like, how does Blue Water go forward?
I think what's difficult for Blue Water is the fact that we saw them have really great openers to each half, right? The pistol rounds, I feel like there were great protocols there, just really unable to carry on that momentum into a lot of the gun rounds. It's tough because when you look at Lotus, you look at Fracture, it's going to be a completely different approach to these two maps, right? There's a lot of push and pull with Fracture, a lot more proactivity that you can expect. And I think what's difficult for Blue Water is we saw them trying to get like a little bit more proactive, but YFP would also like hold back on a lot of that utility. I'm happier to look to re-clear and try and like play their own game off of some of the pace that Blue Water was going for. I think that I have a lot of questions as far as maybe what comp is going to go in. I do think at the end of the day,
Mhm.
when you look back at Lotus, YFP did genuinely just have, I think, the better composition as far as, especially going up as counter picks up against Blue Water there too.
Yeah, and especially if you're looking at Blue Water, the maps that they played when they were playing on Fracture was actually just like in between going into Challengers or whatnot, right? A
Yeah.
lot of it was just trying to figure out like this composition if it worked well because they weren't really utilizing like this Tejo Breach, if I'm not mistaken. I think they went more into like a standard comp of like this Fade with a Brimstone and a KG at that point.
Mhm.
So if you're going to try to pull out a little bit of this Breach tail on your side, which we've already seen here that they're comfortable in doing, then it could actually leverage you a little bit more aggression. And that's also without thinking of the roster changes that came through from the last time they played until now, right? Bob was at the tip of the spear trying to do a lot of that, which he did quite well in GC NA just last weekend. But now you're going to give that to Zeldris. And he looked pretty comfortable on the duelist role as well. So I think this is still going to be a great opportunity for them after getting those reps in that weekend of trying that comp, maybe seeing that it doesn't stick to the best of their abilities, that they could still switch out to something new.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
I
still a
think
little bit of wiggle room for
Exactly.
Blue Water if things
Yeah.
don't happen well here, Ash.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I think that, Vance hit the nail on the head. It was looking a little bit stale with the composition that we saw them playing in the HyperX qualifiers with. And with Bob back onto the initiator now, she's looked really good on that Tejo. I'm expecting those comp changes to come in. It
you
will
go.
be the case here for the side of Blue Water. And I feel like when you look at these comps, mirror comps on both sides, that 1-2 punch with the Tejo and the Breach is one of the most powerful combinations on Fracture that we've seen with the meta developing across both VCT and BCL leagues. And I think that you look towards just how much space you're able to clear on those sites, because you look at Fracture and those sites are actually quite small. You're able to push defenders off really nicely.
Yeah, and if you're looking at it on the other end, I'm going to have to keep an eye out on both Bob and Physic. Because of the mirror composition you're seeing, you actually just mentioned a 1-2 punch. There's going to be a lot of crunches potentially from both of these teams, or north side and south side crunches on the defense, especially when you don't have opportunities to scan in this comp. So you're just trying to break quadrants as soon as possible and as fast as possible at that moment. So your Tejo is going to be very important for the stall with the concuss that you have. Or also, your raises are going to be super important on the defense with the operator because you have opportunities to even get a fourth sight before you actually get stunned out and before you get pushed out from your spot.
Well, Blue Water didn't have a great first half off of defense, but we'll see if this is the composition. Is this the map they could surprise YFP on with not really knowing what YFP have done on Fracture for quite a while? But will this be the end of Blue Water or not? Let's find out. Let's go check in with Keg and Tenric.
Well, Tenrek, I hope you're a fan of cereal, a good cereal enjoyer, because we're going to have a lot of crunches come through from both of these teams on Fracture. That's just the name of the game now. Have that Breach Tejo combo, be able to suffice, get rid of every bit of space you possibly can for these defenders. And realistically, the game plan stays the same as Lotus. Retake, retake, and retake.
100% agreed. I don't think any of these players or either of these teams really need to stray from the play action that they we're going to walk into this beforehand with post map 1. We walk into this and act like it's map 1. Particularly, that is a necessity for Blue Otter trying to hold on to this winning record against, once again, what many consider to be the toughest test in some time. Quick openings from both ends, but the biggest one is from Arcade as YFP will trollops through, smoked away, but not in the tower. Physics going to get extra proactive here, but the Molly is going to be able to box him out. So a hunting we will go over to Dish, where the most of the Vice util lies. Save for the Vice. Thief is hanging around.
But look at Thief. This very small and yet mighty lurk through the underbelly of B. All the while, YP fakes the utility, goes to site, does not clear out Sean Dex at all. Spike does not need to be dedicated just yet. But the walls are closing in on YFP for this pistol. But timing is a blessing in disguise.
Wow.
All the Blue Otter were just about to re-engage on the Spike holder, but because of that lurk from Thief, they re-rotate back over to B site. And luckily oh my. No! Unbelievable. Oh what? Well, that's revenge for Thief getting that smoke kill last map.
Unreal reaction time from Zeldris there. And certainly a sigh of relief coming from him. Thank God I'm not on the third page of Reddit today. YFP trying to cut deep from spawn this time. CT, I should clarify, but Blue Otter still have quite the strong crunch after being able to play preventative physic. Too many directions to look. Blue Otter will take the pistol.
Yeah, this is going to be such an interesting map to watch YFP because it's going to sound like a broken record, right? But they like to fake their executes. You have 4 different lanes on this map to do that. And YFP have so much room that they can play around with once they have rifles that Blue Otter could easily be going in circles, re-clearing things that have no value to them on these defensive rounds. But Thief's distance making into this first pistol is a very big indicator of what YFP's overall game plan should be. Just gobble up this space and make sure Blue Otter are never feeling safe in any position.
Everybody and everything needs to feel like a danger zone. As YFP once again walks into Arcade. This time, it's Penny's util that finds the first prowess. Physic, now less deterred with his drone, is going to let Penny do a lot of the talking to open up the site itself, but still a little scatter shot is the remainder of this team, and the Spike has been left unattended after Stellar has been dealt with. Zostel attempting to reopen. Nice high-low that Physic attempts to maintain, but still walks away with the frag. Blue Otter, still fragmented, has to hand the site over at the very least, but the Molly doesn't flush Jake out just yet. And now Thief can set up to get him out of the way too. Free peek off of the flash. No, he'll just walk it down. And so Blue Otter decide to do the same. Swinging off of this fault line. That's the only opportunity you'll get. Bobsta in on the snipe. That's one gone, and now it's committal for Blue Otter on this retake. Jake still kept in the pocket, and so Thief can take center stage in the 1v2 with Bob holding on to that Marshall, but Thief holding on to the wrong sight line. A do-si-do that's wasting far too much time. Bob still finds the shot, but Jake is still ready and waiting, and all he has to do is walk into this. YFP take away the second round.
Oh, the analysts are going to have a field day with this one. YFP, again, they lost their pistol, but they chose to go international with their strat, and they bought up nothing but light shields and stingers all throughout and ran it down B. The plan came through. A lot of value suddenly added to this round to anti-eco away from Blue Otter and get rid of their guns too. Not only did YFP end up winning this round, they got rid of all the buy-up guns that Blue Otter had employed. And which would normally now be their bonus buy, only a single full auto rifle exists, and that's to the hands of Zeldris. YFP once more are having a field day with their starting positions of this game.
And even here, so much intel gained by Thief by just standing on that north T. They're able to start clearing out the hallways of both of the south sides so much more quickly. Penny, good amount of space cleared here on the B steps. Zeke is going to be forced to wait here forever as the rest of Blue Otter prepares to condense on their one and done bonus.
Talk about that re-clearing. Zeldris so far away from the fight, now suddenly appearing outside of sand. That's one gone, Bob. A Guardian in play. That's the last person you want to give it to. If you're YFP, that's 2 for Bob. To remove away again, YFP. The manipulation of the economy should be in their favor, but no.
Weapon here.
There's a stock market crash on Fracture. And with 3 left alive for Blue, that Guardian is now lost. Zeldris, the only rifle bearer, still will be clearing satellite, not fully sure where the remains of YFP are.
All missiles away.
No reason not to leave for either side just yet. YFP will full send it onto the site. Zeldris preventative util. The paint shells do some chip to Physic and leave Penny abandoned. Rest of Blue Water tries to take on the fight, but Penny's got the pot shots going, and the aftershock doesn't fully box him out. That's 1 gone. That's 2. Penny continues to dominate. Zeldris continues to counter. 1 gone, and off of the paint shells and Showstopper, he'll be forced to swing and even drop. Penny is good for 3 again to give YFP the lead.
A pendulum swing in seconds. It looked like it should have been a dominant YFP round. Suddenly, Bob gets a double, and now Blue Otter have all the chips on their side. But Penny has been that difference maker again since the beginning of map 1 now. It's a 3K to clear out the entirety of A site itself. Blue Otter, they do have full rifles with them this time. 10 rec, the ult economy looking pretty well in their favor as 2. No early smokes. No anti-B push-up. Oh, but there is one. But it's not going to stop YFP whatsoever. They do adhere for the smokes, but Penny has an alternate angle. Does allow maybe to go to the underside of B, and Thief is up above an arcade waiting for the aggressive push-up. Nobody's going for orb control on either side. It's about silence and preparing to strike all at once to overwhelm the defenders.
Still waiting for that magical moment. Reading that Shondex is waiting in this tower, and YFP will get around it early. And Blue Water cannot circumvent a takeover of B site. It's quick, it's painless. And so they'll have more than enough time to get this down. Armageddon launched early. Bob, perfect placement of the salvos to continue chasing down Stellar until he's weathered away inside that vent. But now, the salvo's right back to force out to Canteen and give YFP that site right back. Such is the nature of the mirror comp, such is the nature of the double Tejo. Stellar finally dealt with. This time it's the aftershock that is able to not just space him out, but take away his life.
A noble sacrifice.
Continues to tick, indeed. As YFP can now just re-crunch this way more safely. They've been able to go blow for blow, toe-to-toe on the util, and from here, they just need to do the same on the frags. But they can't! And Zeke gets an ace off of the micro swings! An unreal swing of the pendulum yet again to give us a tie game.
Holy crap, Zeke. Oh my. We gotta see a replay of that. It looked like for sure at first it was a collapse, but then he just re-swings again. Yeah, give Zeke a moment. Yeah, there you go. That's the face of a champion. One ace from Zeke. Yeah, honestly.
We'll have to see that again. How much of that went through two, and how much of that was him just doubling back? That was two. That's insane.
Does he even spot Jake on the... Okay, no, he does see it very briefly before he engages with that collab. Wow.
Unbelievable bravery, though, to have to just duck back out as well. Just no brain, all aim.
But look, remember, the desk was talking about how, you know, confidence is really big for both of these teams, and having an ace go up against you, yeah, you won map number 1, but an ace is an ace, man. That is demoralizing. YFP, though, they gotta keep their head on their shoulders. Once again, we're seeing the crunch from YFP's side be more B-main facing than it is arcade. Flash is available for anti-orb. All of Blue Otter's defense now assured that this should be an arcade take. It is not.
Right there.
They're more prepared to unload on the Vice util itself, deal with Shondex early like they have been. It seems like an effective playbook, and indeed, the Flood is more than effective enough. Jake happy to take a back seat for the post plant anyway, especially if YFP can deal with this as heartily as they are. Getting up close and personal with these smokes this time to get this cycle going nice and early. This should be already done here, but we'll see if Blue Otter is able to make a statement, get a gap. They are able to molly on top of the smoke, so they'll force a little bit of util flushing from these heavier users on the post-plant steps. Perhaps a late spike take is in their future if they're able to find the right angle on the tower. But we're just so spread thin here. as YFP. So many ways to just cut you loose. So still nice jump on the judge, though. Fun way to get one, as Blue Otter will attempt to make their slice in. Bob good for 1-2. Impressive damage done, but still the round going to the attackers.
Hey, we talked about confidence, right? You get aced up against on B, you swing right back even faster the next round and win it, forcing most of Blue Otter to save. And, you know, Stellar gets a consolation prize. Blue Otter are in timeout territory now. Their economy is in shambles. It's all over the place with one singular Vandal being brought out and a litany of sheriffs. The ults could be huge here to leverage those odds, but they have to be timed perfectly. It's really Blue Otter not having a pulse of what to expect in the first 30 or so seconds. Even YFP having only B-sided control, have the protocols in place to watch out for an aggressive A flank in the post plant, because that's what a lot of teams in partnership will do. They'll take that aggressive A space, they'll fight for it and go for the flank in post plant if A is not procced. This time it's a switch up though for Satellite. Vice Util stacked up top of Satellite side. A stack up from Blue Otter on B side, waiting the death ball on the sign of any contact. But it's Penny. Toss with the double blast pack and take a lot of extra space through sight. And yet nobody's there. It's a retake call from Blue Otter.
And Shondex opting to get off. No Kevin McAllister this round. YFP will read that nice and early, and so they will not unload nearly as much util as they normally do on the takeover. Now a Rolling Thunder on top of a Steel Guard in both sides. Very worse for wear, but Zeldris' paint shells do find that connection. And ultimately, Blue Otter still have the space making for the site itself, which Zeke will use a Rolling Thunder to get onto that. Penny pressured, still not down though, and YFP can go for the recrunch a little early here. Zeldris at least able to take care of that, but YFP, they still got the sidelines. Thief for 2, and now Jake with that ultimate to waste even more time. This is the real strength of that YFP comp. Into the molly, into the salvos. Is there even enough time, even if you deal with these? Certainly not. Armageddon for good measure, and YFP take away the round yet again.
Does this mean that Kevin McAllister lost?
Yeah, those two bandits got him for sure.
Ah, Joe Pesci.
That's why they got a new one for the third movie.
Oh, you're right. They did
'Cause he
replace that
died.
kid. Oh. They didn't even use the other Culkin.
Oh yeah, they totally could have done that too.
But they didn't.
They
Instead, Joe Pesci got like set on fire in the first movie. But
and Kieran
anyways,
Culkin never had a good career ever again.
that's not true. Didn't he just win an award like last week?
That is several.
Yeah, I think he just got a BAFTA. Anyways,
so.
though, YFP have now doubled the rounds over Blue Otter yet again. It has been a struggle for Blue Otter to find their place on site in the retakes. They've been great about the micro fights, but YFP have had proper positioning, spacing, and most importantly, really regimented practice in how they want to protocol out these post plans.
Grenade is live.
Again, an A take. Physic, now this time, usually Thief is the one watching out for Arcade, but Blue Otter are opting not to take any aggressive space. They're going to try to stack up B, and if that doesn't work, they're going to retake A yet again. And I'm going to be honest with you, Tenrek, I'm nervous. This hasn't worked at all for them.
Yeah, no, this doesn't look too clean from Blue Otter, unfortunately. The A retake just doesn't look as strong as how they're forming themselves makes it out to be. But a good amount of zoning out from Physic done to make sure that that north side T-spawn made it so Blue Otter, they had to kind of choose where they can control. And now Penny able to confidently take these long sights. Bob still will nip it in the bud, but 33 health points to go, and the spike has already been planted. Jake continuing to hold his own on site, and the spacing is still insane. Zeke, wrap around the dish, only gets the one. Thief turns it back around, and yet again, these crazy peaks from behind are just not getting all the connection that they could be, and it's keeping these rounds as close as humanly possible. A collective 37 health among the remaining members of YFP, but the beauty of Fracture, they are so bloody far away from this spike, and Zeldris has to do all of the work himself, clearing out every wall, cage, floor, corner, door, everything. There's one off the drop. Jake on 2, but is there time? Yes. 5-2 YFP, the attack remains at large.
The gears are turning in the Blue Otter minds. Yes, the retakes have looked a little shaky, but being able to take that more fluid space, the satellite retake, pushing up against the Vice all inside of spawn, it's something. it's the next step in the right direction. Now, it's worth noting, too, that Ash mentioned the HyperX qualifiers that we have seen Blue Otter play on Fracture in. They haven't played it in VCL yet. They did beat Ambrosia 14-12 on that map in the qualifiers, but they also lost to Winthrop 4-13. Now, those sound like two very different score lines, but there is one very scary commonality. One, they didn't have Zeldris. So there's two commonalities. The second is that Blue Otter found zero impact on their attacking rounds.
Yeah.
They won off the brunt of their defense. And this defense is not looking up the par against YFP's attack.
I'm just not seeing the right spending here from Blue Otter when it comes to people you're willing to let go of on a site so that you're at least able to fight with like a little bit more like space making, like closer to your mid round. It just feels so separated. Like Blue Otter, it just feels a little bit too slow in getting back here. And I understand that like you have to make sure that you've cleared out everything else. And I mean, Zeldris did a beautiful job right here, but the fact is you have to play just a little bit preventative at this stage, like we saw Bob do so beautifully earlier in this game. And they just haven't been able to replicate that as well.
Well, this is how you have to do it, though. Breach Taeho meta, you have a raise, very little info gathering. You find info with your eyes, man. You find info with your guns. And they're able to remove at least Jakey, so smokes are off the table for YFP, but a Breach Taeho meta, I mean, yes, you should have smokes, but you have stuns and flashes. And there's no flashes at all now except for Shondex's.
Yeah, Zeldris is so alone on this site, and only now is Zostal able to get back to him. Is this gonna... Okay, no, wow. Barely avoids those shells. 41 health points remaining. Still has a showstopper, but Penny has found him out, so he's got to use it before the kill instead of after. That's Thief gone and Physic very low. But Penny finally able to take back on the Ditto, and that is the space once again made. Penny, extra for good measure, 3v1. And yet again, like you said, they did do the thing this time, but sans flashes, they can't come back in for the second part of what they have to do.
Yeah, this is not a pacifist run now for YFP. They're looking for a lot of impact early on. It was a great early... Wait, hold on. Oh,
Okay.
It was a great early read for Blue Otter, too. At the start of the round, they called that YFP would not go for their usual B-take strat off the timeout and attempt to do something different. And it was great contact plays off of Blue Otter, but Jakey was the only life of YFP lost. Blue Otter lost two critical players. And through that all whittled away as YFP approached the site, it was Zeldris fighting for his life in essentially a 1v4. And even that wasn't enough.
So much power wielded here by YFP's piercing attack. And as long as Penny stays open, I mean, he's the one who's been finding the most util out of this YFP squad, like you said, just by walking into it and seeing what he can find. Hey, guys, I found Zeke. He's dead now. Hey, guys, I found Bob. She's at 4 HP. Let's go. Clear comms, clear comms. Now we're on, and yet again, Blue playing preventatively on the site. And yet again, Penny reopens us. Zeldris, yet again alone. We have read this story before, chat, and it doesn't end pretty. YFP continue to sweep, and this time it's against the save. This time it's against a Blue Otter that are stacked enough to be prepared for the remainder of this half, but it is 7-2.
I mean, surely now you put Vice Util A main, right? Not Satellite, right? And then you 4-stack B?
I don't know. You might put your Vice Util back B and then 3-stack A. I don't know if they stop
did
doing
that last round.
I don't know if they stop. I don't know if they can stop doing that, because then they could just swing back to B steps and just take that, because I mean they took that with more confidence than this. This is their plan B at this stage.
It's such a cop-out for us on the mic to be like, I just win gunfights. But like, it's Fracture, man. You kind of have to in the first 10 seconds. Okay, surely now you win this first gunfight on B. Penny entries hard with the showstopper. There is just overstimulating amounts of lights and colors everywhere. It is a kaleidoscope nightmare. But Penny survives the nightmare and has full sight control.
Paint shells yet again for the flush, but like you said, that one take was so much. Blue Water will now unload, but they're in front of the problem, and so YFP, they'll become even more of one. An orbital strike to deal back into the spawn choke, and so Blue Water are still even Stevens on this swing back. Jake getting confident as well, and YFP continue to have more star plays at more key times, and that leads them to the rounds. This fast take, the Vice Util continue to play a role, but YFP continue to be a thorn in the side, and they are holding on to this with an iron fist. Another swing from Jake, another kill from Jake. We go onward, further and further into this YFP-controlled abyss. And we ain't even in abyss. 2-0 very much on the horizon, even if this attack just continues to be as clean as it is.
I mean, YFP have not shown weakness at all so far this map. Blue Water, they looked great. They won pistol. I believe every pistol we've seen so far, every half of this series. But that's about it. You put rifles or anything relating to pistols in the hands of YFP, and it's just a different story. Remember, this map started with Blue Water winning pistol, then losing the Stinger buy-up from YFP afterwards, and just Blue Otter's economy still has not recovered from that, and we're at round 11.
Yeah, it's been
Guardian City.
It's been such a crawl here from Blue Water to try to make some headway, but we've just gotten away, scraped too much off the top every single time if you're YFP. Huge attempt from Penny here, and he'll still find one, but Zeldris will take care of it a little earlier here than normal. Armageddon right on top. Interesting way to try to clear.
These unbelievable macro reads against Blue Otter, knowing the fake exec against A side to draw away rotations, bringing everyone on YFP over towards B side. The spike goes down. Shondex is good for 2. Suddenly things are open more up. Steel Garden's available. Zostal wakes up. And now it's just down to Physic in a 1v3.
One moment of tunnel vision is all Blue Water needs to reopen the door, and now they'll have some guns to spare along with a round on the board. Round 12 will finally have them on equal footing, a place that they were so desperately trying to claw to this whole half.
And
well played.
This was a round of over-engineering from YFP's end. Every single round that they have won on their attack was a straight execute. The one round where they do YFP things and send out a very aggressive Penny with a bunch of utility to sell and execute and double back over towards the other site was the round that they ended up losing. So surely this final round of the attack to the YFP playbook has to be a straight shot A.
It must be. It must be the simplest of attacks here for YFP.
And there's that Vice Util.
Skill dip. Still right in front of him. Will the Razor Vines get procced, or will Penny get ahead of it? It's been about a 50-50 split so far, and it'll be preventative from Blue Water. YFP will take heed and hang out outside of spawn, getting rid of that second Razor Vine too, nice and early, getting in front of it. The entire stack of Blue Water is now here to meet this at the moment. Will YFP choose to fight it? Penny's inside and is lurking hard, is taking all this space. Blue Water assuming that's exactly where they're headed, and we'll just hit everywhere else. Rolling Thunder both ways, and now a Steel Guard in Blue Water again, completely outside of it. Everyone is on drop, but YFP has done all the clearing. They should be aware of this, and so one Razor Vine will stop so much of this drop from occurring. YFP all the freedom in the world to relocate. And Blue Water, all they can do is just try to clear with all of this wanton space that was already YFP's to begin with. It all falls apart, except from on high, where Zeke is able to still crack open two. Still, though, this is not the fight that matters. What matters is actually getting on the site, and that is something that Blue Water will appear to continue to be incapable of on the retake. It'll be a 9-3 half going into the swap in favor of YFP.
Blue Otter just needed some way of having an early clear against YFP. An early stealth drone could have solved a lot of those issues. The aggressive peek up was great, but that only solved 1/4 of the equation. A lot of times it was these big aggro plays, the theatrics meant to no audience. YFP, they just took sight for free over and over. But remember, this is a mirrored comp. The mistakes that Blue Otter made on their defense is something that YFP could do as well. They had the same utility limitations in info gathering. But YFP's also been, surprisingly, in this series, much more looking forward, I suppose, looking for these early fights. it's been Blue Otter shying away from them.
So will YFP remain as hungry as they were? Looks like they're going to take the A hallway on this pistol round. The drone will be heard early, and so Bob is going to try to zone out with the salvo and hide from this until it's done. Giving away that space. Penny remaining respectful as the 3-stack continues to encapsulate. Physic enters correctly, and the first threat of Blue Water is gone, but the rest have rotated around the other side and have taken over the A site.
Flash out.
Is Zostal going to get all the way in front of this? That would be...
This is really aggressive from Blue Otter.
3 still outside this door. Blue Water have to be relatively aware of the stack, right?
Surely. Yeah, they have to be. Now, certainly the door is open. Now it's a 1v3. You need to be aware. A collapse is brought out at the proper time. Jakey, good for 2. 1 left at Zeke. Coordination has just been sublime from YFP's end.
Yeah.
This is... You go back and watch the M80 match and you compare it to this, it's a completely different team.
Tremendous prioritization of which chokes to check first, and the skill difference that shows up when they actually connect onto those clears continues to shine through. Jake in particular, this game so far has had those moments quite a bit, like you said, of being able to just confidently swing open those aggressive choices that Blue Water is making and just close them right back up, turning all that space into nothing. Another pistol taken up, potential 11-3 in the cards here as YFP will load up. Penny and Jake have got some rifles in their hands.
Crunch brought out by Blue Otter. Very normal for a Fracture takedown in 2025. Call made by YFP, something we didn't see much from Blue Otter. Pushing up and flanking out of the A, aggress early, something that YFP was looking for on their own attacks. Thief is out now, a judge in play, still with Heaven control. Oh, this Guardian Angel.
Yet again, much more value than what Blue Otter may have been willing to bargain for. And yet, remaining frugal when having to take things on. Stellar still has both of his blinds. Exiting this.
Flash at all.
I'm like, YFP have been so incredible at retaining weight, despite the fact that they are still taking fights so advantageously. It feels like this is almost effortless for them at this point. This is so much confidence, so much competence as well, and all these players. I mean, you see in particular, I have to shout out Jake and Physic for spotting so many moments in which you can see them, you literally see them want to go a little farther and start using their util, and then they recognize that lack of motion from Blue Water, and they will double back. I have never seen such visible respect for the other side and themselves from a player in BCL before, and I have never seen so much confidence from Penny, but he just gets better and better as this season goes on. There's another one from the boy.
Big stealth drone early on led into a 5 Blue Otter, and recognizing the util, double back around to try to take the fight. Smokes are now gone, and Penny just doing Penny things. This economy for Blue Otter once again, it's looking like my bank account, dude. It's not pretty. It's sheriff worthy.
And we'll be able to just hold on to this spike. This will be pretty cut and dry on top of the pistols. So Blue Otter, it is now a 9-round gap that they have to make up here on map number 2. And it will once again be with an economy that is still relatively broken. We will be able to claw our way to some rifles, but the armor will be lacking severely, as is the ult pool on both sides, to be fair. So YFP still have to not be big spenders if they decide to remain aggressive, but Blue Water can walk into this fight with a whole lot more confidence.
I mean, YFP, they could even just lack on weaponry if they want to, and nah, they're just gonna go for Judge City, Rifle Town.
All missiles away.
And for Blue Otter, they don't have much of a choice than overbuy. Already, YFP losing some spacing with Tejo util. The goal this time is to fake presence on B site, wait for the push-up, but Shondex caught off guard, the flash never used. Reset and re-hit for YFP as a defense team, employing attacker strats. Re-clear with the stealth drone. And if this spots out the attackers, and I think it does, just seals the fate of Blue Water this series.
Now YFP can get even greedier on other fronts. And Penny is going to let the showstopper go even. Zeke forced a blind on the run back, and so it'll just be a re-clear of the A hall here with that Raze ultimate as Blue Water scurry on back to the B crunch that they're still not super confident in because of all this util that Thief is holding on to. He'll step inside the smoke and yet again get a kill on this shotgun. Sprayed down to almost a crisp, and still Blue Otter failed to fully crack open the door. Great patience from Zeke to find one in the aftershock. Thief is just gonna walk past it to find that next kill.
30 seconds
Bobs
left.
just stands alone, and coordination continues to be the biggest seller for YFP. Biggest part of Challengers really has been who can enable who, and in the big stars of the biggest teams, you'll see these duos and trios that are just about any and everywhere, so universal. Oh, look at that. Redux is getting opened up by T-Dog. Oh, look at that. Seven and Sim are walking into a site together. The beautiful thing about YFP is that anybody can open up anybody. Penny can bring in Stellar. Stellar can bring in Stellar. You can have anybody substitute for any entry role for this squad, and it has led to such flexibility in their aggression across these two maps. What a great series by them.
I really thought for sure that YFP and Blue Water could go toe-to-toe against each other, having very similar play styles in terms of how they play with each other and against different teams. But between the last few matches that we've seen from YFP to now, this team is seriously elevated in their fundamental game as players. And it does bring me to an interesting question, Mr. Tenrak.
Yeah.
There is another team that has been undefeated in Challengers who also excels in these wild and brazen gunfights. Could YFP be the ones that do it? I'm all smiles. They could be too if they beat rankers.
That will be in the far future, certainly. That is in the playoffs conversation. But YFP with this win have gotten far closer to it. Only one away from making that top 8. Meanwhile, Blue Water, they are back to an even record. They will head back to the middle of the Swiss in the following round. We'll get a chance to chat about all of that and segue very cleanly into our second match of the day with the desk after this short break.
I'd say it's a little bit different. It's a different aspect. It's like picking up any new player, different personalities, different backgrounds, like different amounts of experience. So I'd say it's a challenge in its own aspect, especially like with Timotino. He's less experienced, hasn't played Challengers before, but he's like proven me a lot. He's made me proud. So I'd say just like teaching them what our system is, because every team has different systems. It's like, what is the system for core? So that's like been the biggest thing. We've been like preaching that, like, yo, we do things like this way here. Like maybe you did it on this team, but like this is how we do it here. Like we're gonna do stuff like this, right? So just teaching them like our way, like the core way. I guess like consistency is like a big one, I'd say. And that's still a big challenge for every single team, including this one. We're still trying to find like our footing, our consistency. But I would just say like the mood's always high, no matter what. We lose a couple rounds and it's like, all right, whatever, like next round mentality. We like to have that like short-term memory loss. Like who cares? We get 1v5 next round, doesn't matter. We get, I don't know, something happens, op collateral and a clutch, like it doesn't matter. We're always going to the next round. We're always in high spirits, and we just try to focus on winning that next round. I would say consistent improvement. We're gonna work hard every single day, day in, day out. We had our first match already. We won map 1. We ended up getting reverse sweeped. Tough loss, but there's so much to learn from these matches, right? You can learn a lot from scrims, but match reps are like so much different, and you just learn so much more, like how people react to certain situations. So I'd say throughout every single match this season, you're gonna see improvement. And we are really trying to dominate this season when it comes to the end of it. So maybe week 1, maybe week 2 won't look so good, but by the end of the season, like we'll look good. We're like low experience as a team. We just started practicing like a few weeks ago as a 5 compared to some other teams who've been together for months, potentially even like last season. So we're still working together. We're still trying to find our footing, but just consistent improvement.
14-3. That is no joke on Fracture. I mean, we already knew this was not going to look good when Blue Water have struggled on this map previously, but we had posed the question, will YFP belong in the top of the standings, Vans? That trend continues to be true.
And it definitely did. But I do have to commend at least for Blue Water to try to come out with that standard composition and know the strengths of what they could bring out with this composition. The only thing is, just as the casters mentioned before here with Tenric and Keg, they had such a hard time getting their money going on their side of the defense that other winning condition that I was mentioning before, where you could have Zeldris or Bob on the operator and do a lot of good things, it did not happen, unfortunately, because they were forced playing Guardians, they were forced on half-buys, they were just not having a good time, the best time of their lives, rather, on the map pick that they could potentially even upset against YFP, but it's just YFP being so good, controlling the macro from beginning to the end.
And Ash, this tells me a lot that we haven't seen Fracture from YFP in quite a long time, and for them to still excel tells me that their map pool is more flexible than we think. They have a lot of strengths.
And I think it's a good time to be able to pull that out. Again, right? I was talking about it a little bit earlier before we even headed into Fracture, the fact that we're going into 2 maps back-to-back in Lotus and Fracture where we hadn't seen YFP play within the recent meta. It gives that element of surprise. Will they lean into more of like that meta style? What were they cooking in those scrims? And everything's looking pretty good as far as that macro. I think there were some sloppier rounds with utility timing, I think, for both squads. But overall, YFP had a great macro approach. Their post plants were absolutely insane. Back-to-back on Lotus and on Fracture. I really like the ebb and flow, and it was really important for this last map, I think, to be a dominant win for them to cement that they belong within the top echelon.
100%. I think week number 4 is a perfect time for them to show their hand, where week number 1, again, you're trying to overcook things and it didn't work out into your favor. And then week number 2, you're going into the meta picks of this chamber. Sorry, not the chamber, but the Breach and Tejo. And then going into week number 3 and 4, you're also changing your map pool. So yes, you are showing a little bit more once going into playoffs to show a little bit more tape, but this is a great opportunity to show those hands now, because you're at least trying to qualify in the first place. And for them to do this in this fashion on 2 maps that they haven't shown here on the side of YFP, it shows how much they respected Blue Water and what they could bring against YFP. So I like that, at least from the call here from Physic, from YFP's side, and from Mac, as well as their recent coach that's joined in from that week number 2. So I like it. It's just now, how are they going to continue that? Hopefully, first place to qualify, but then also refresh that strat book going to the playoff.
For sure. And we're going to have an interview with someone from YFP very soon. So stay tuned so we can talk all about that coach. And so important. I was under a rock. This happened just a week ago. And look how YFP are still swinging for the fences and double digits in the first kills, Ash, just to be able to start off your round on a good foot. And for Penny to stay consistent from map to map is boons really well for YFP and their future to try and threaten better teams.
No, that is for sure. I think it's been really huge for Penny. It has great setup coming out from both Physic and also a Stellar on Fracture here, to be able to actually find a lot of those first bloods, finds those openings, the 7 that he was able to total. And it was difficult for Zeldris to kind of keep up with Penny in that regard, getting shut down a little bit more frequently, but not even necessarily just like shut down. I think not even getting really the chance to get started because of how quick Penny was able to find those openers round for round. And it's just a really nice showing. I'm hoping to see YFP continue forward with that kind of momentum.
Yeah, Penny went 7-1 in first bloods and first death on that map of Fracture. And it shows here how, again, he's become like a Swiss Army knife in terms of the agent pool, because not only is he playing Duelist, but he's also playing Chamber in that fashion, but also seeing a map here like Fracture, where Raze could be very good. I know some teams are still running a Yoru on this map from time to time, which has its pros and cons, but being able to have that Raze to be explosive on the satchels, to gain that space on the top of like the satchels, as you saw towards Sands when you're trying to move very quickly on like a breach fault line, it shows how much Penny has grown into being very comfortable on all of these agents that now exist in the player pool in a game like Valorant. So this is very, very nice to see how Penny has become such a complete player now for a roster like YFP.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, to be so good on the Yoru and then the Rays and how interchangeable and on all these different maps, you have a new coach. Like, this is YFP like demanding that crown, the one that they wish they had against Rankers, and that's the only team that is still undefeated. But YFP still need to get one more win before they get to playoffs. And with a showing like this, Ash, I think it's pretty obvious that they should get it. It all depends on their opponent, but at least Rankers is out of the way.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Yeah, very valid in that regard. And the fact that we also have seen them kind of warm up, I think, into the season there as well. The fact that the chemistry, I think, has been starting to come together a little bit more for this YFP squad. Didn't necessarily look the most composed earlier on, but again, it was a very close matchup that they did have up against Rankers, and I'm really liking the stuff that we're seeing from them. I would like to see some adjustments, I think, with maybe some of the comms or the timing of that utility, just so it can be a little bit cleaner, but this is a great start.
Well, speaking of clean, I know, Ash, you were really impressed with what YFP did in round 12. So bring us through that one, because you said these sites get small, the post plants are strong for YFP, and how they work together is where they shine.
I think that in this round, what was really nice was just the push and pull that we saw from there, right? They take advantage of the fact that they take that CT spawn. They understand that Blue Otter are mostly retaking from drop at this point. You see the vines going out, you see the mollies going down, and just the continuous delay. And there's a reason why these post plants have been so strong on the side of YFP. They're not giving any room for Blue Otter to breathe on those retakes. And that was the story that was carried over even from our first map.
YFP just showed us how much stronger they get week after week, map after map, and I'm gonna go and interview one of the superstars from that team. So I'm gonna dismiss our analysts for now and get someone new all up in here. So everyone say hello to our initiator extraordinaire, Physic. Hello. It is dark in there, but I know your mind is bright. How do you feel after today? That was quite the win.
Yeah, feeling great. Happy to win. Happy to win with the boys. 2-0, clean.
Yeah, that was really clean. How did you approach this series? Because there were no slip ups. It really felt like, especially that 13-3 at the end. How did y'all approach it?
I mean, in terms of approach, we didn't really do any extra prep or anything like that. I think we just focused really on this past week, just having like good practice and like translating that over into the match. We didn't do anything like too extensive in terms of prep. Just, played practice very cleanly, played in the match very clean, and that was it.
And was there any concern around Zeldris joining Blue Otter, or just another day at the office? Doesn't matter who's on the other side for you.
Just another day at the office. Doesn't really matter.
And I know the casters, everybody is very curious about the communication system, because we know that you've been IGL for a long time for YFP, but there's a lot of yappers on your team. So tell us how that role is being shared.
Well, now actually Stellar's doing like a lot of the main like early round calling, like off barrier, and I think we do have a lot of vocal players on the team, so they obviously pitch in. But he's done a lot for the calling, and he's like the main IGL now. So I just try to fill in the blanks and like help a lot, mainly on like the later parts of the round, like post plant, coordinating things like that. But yeah.
It's cool to just get different perspectives in, and for y'all to just keep excelling. And now I heard that you got a new coach, just 10 days ago, with Max settling in. So what's been his or your team's long-term plan to try and take the crown this stage?
Matt came in I think less, maybe 6 days ago, something like that.
Yeah.
But he honestly made a huge impact almost instantly within the first day that we started playing with him. I think he kind of got us all on the same page, and we didn't really need anything crazy in terms of a coach bringing something in, but he just he got us all to click, and he got us to do a lot of the fundamental things that we had just stopped doing over time. So he's been a huge help, and I think a big reason as to why we're looking so good after our loss versus M80. So yeah, I think just going forward, I mentioned it a bit in the prior interviews, but we've been focusing really hard on fundamentals. I know it's cliche and it's very simple and basic, but the basic things will get you a long way. So I think that's our philosophy going forward in terms of how we're going to win Challengers.
No, for sure. I know I hear a lot of the coach preaching about the fundies and how everyone's forgetting about that, but you guys are one win away from getting into playoffs. Wishing you the best of luck, and thank you for the interview. All right, that was Physic from YFP ending off that last map 13-3. Holy cow, YFP could try to threaten that crown. Are we going to get that Rankers versus YFP playoff grand final again? Well, that is down the road. Let's focus on our next match coming up. We have Shopify Rebellion Gold versus Hakiki Mori, and that's an elimination match, meaning the loser will be out of Challengers. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. We'll see you after this.